So in today's speech, I'll be talking about the fall of police and community relationships and how to fix it. So in today's day and age, there has been a rise in negative feelings between the police and the communities they protect. For example, the organization Black Lives Matter is an activist movement that asserts that there is violence and systematic racism towards Black people by police. However, this is not necessarily the case. Not that there are not cases like that. But police as a whole do not show favoritism or bigotry, but rather deal with situations that make it difficult for them to patrol the communities that they're supposed to protect. So instead of trying to blame each other, the police and communities should work together and trust each other so that they can create a safer community. This presentation will demonstrate the reasons behind why the police and community relationships are deteriorating, discuss the possible solutions such as police body cameras and police community-friendly programs, and how the world would look like with and without the solutions implemented. So one of the biggest problems is that there are high levels of crime and gang presence in low-income minority neighborhoods, and so people often perceive force by police as a race issue. Here's proof that this is a serious problem. According to data from 61 metropolitan police agencies, the U.S. cities saw 6,407 homicides in 2016. That's an 11% increase from 2015. In a study done in 2009 by Piquero, self-report studies document more extensive levels of involvement in serious criminal behavior among minority populations, particularly among Blacks. Here's how this problem impacts everyone. With violent crime on the rise, police are even more vigilant. However, they're not robots. They're human. And even with the amount of training that they have, at the end of the day, they all just want to make it home to their families. Unfortunately, this may cause them to be trigger happy if they feel threatened. Some people say that this isn't really a problem. They claim that the real reason why people in minority neighborhoods are becoming victims of police violence is mainly because police are racially biased. Vitana.org states that 1 out of 3 people that are killed by police in any given year in the United States is African American or Black. This is not necessarily true. In fact, an article by the U.S. Department of Justice states that white accounted for 42% of reported arrested-related deaths. 32% were Black and 20% were Hispanic between 2003 and 2009. Also, a 2015 paper by Clofus states that violent crime rates and police killings of felons were positively related. Cities that had more police killings of felons also had higher violent crime rates. There was no significant relationship between police killings and of felons and levels of inequality in cities. Another big problem is that these very same communities do not or rarely work with the police to fight and prevent crimes in their neighborhoods, either because they're afraid of the gangs in their neighborhoods or because they have a natural distrust for police, such as those immigrants who come from foreign countries that have very corrupt governments. Here's proof that this is a serious problem. The Times states that American confidence in the police is now 53%, which is a 5% decrease from 2013, and which is also the lowest value since 1993. This also impacts our life. When people in the community do not help the police to end crime and do not contact the police if there is any trouble in their neighborhoods, the police have little way of being able to convict these vicious criminals and keep them from terrorizing the neighborhood. They're basically fighting with their hands tied behind their backs. Some people say that this isn't really a problem. In a study by Vin of the people who completed the survey, 70.8% said that they would likely report a crime. 68.5% said that they would report suspicious behavior near their home, and 63.5% said that they would provide information to help find a suspect. However, these actions are very non-committal. They are basically just telling little small facts here and there, but they are not actually cooperating with the police to actually actively find this criminal. This very same study shows that 47.3% of the people who completed the study would volunteer their time and effort to help the police solve a crime and find a suspect. And 41.3% said that they would actually patrol the streets as an organized community group. Considering how many people there are in the US, this percentage is rather low and would not be enough to lighten the load off police officers and get the criminals off the streets. Now, these problems can be remedied, but only if both the police and the community are willing to take steps to learn to trust each other, take responsibility, and work together to prevent and fight against crime, whether the perpetrator is a citizen or a police officer. This could be done multiple ways. That means that police officers should be required to have both dash and 2 sets of body cameras so that they are held accountable for any wrongful use of force. Also, this means that there should be police and community-friendly programs available and implemented so that the police and the community have a certain amount of opportunity to work together in more positive ways and learn to trust each other. Dash and body cameras are easy enough. Having both a dash camera and 2 body cameras ensures the community that the police are held accountable. Having 2 body cameras makes it less likely for citizens to just say that the police just turn their camera off on purpose in case of a camera malfunctioning or getting damaged. Here's proof that this works. According to the results from a study posted on Huffington Post, use of force incidents dropped by 53% among officers with cameras. Civilian complaints against those officers also saw a 65% drop. Some say that this kind of solution doesn't actually work. For example, in another article from the Huffington Post, officers don't always use cameras correctly because the officers would talk about the incident off camera or turn their cameras off completely, which is both against police department policy. And even though it is true that cameras are not a solve-all solution, that does not mean that they don't have any usefulness for transparency. Keep in mind that even though there may be a few bad apples out there, even just having the cameras present is a deterrent for bad behavior. For example, policeone.com states that this self-awareness caused by the camera's neutral third eye affects the psyches of both the officers and the suspects alike. This caused prompting of suspects to cool down their aggressive actions and deterring officers from using excessive unnecessary force. In fact, according to Orlando Sentinel, injuries to suspects by the officers who were on camera went down by 75%, and officers getting hurt during calls went from about 1 a month to none, in a year-long study by the University of South Florida. That being said, there is much work needed to be done. Certainly the amounts of violence and crime can be better. However, that does not mean that it cannot get any worse. Imagine just how bad it could be if we don't implement the solutions. The trust between the community and the police will continue to rapidly decline, resulting in more violent crime and therefore more violent force. This can be seen in lots of riots and anarchy, as people probably have seen in movies like Batman. On the flip side though, imagine how much better the world would be once the solutions are implemented. People in the community would learn to trust the police enough so that they will not be afraid to call them for help, especially against gangs. The police would also be able to understand the people in the community and be able to better serve and protect them, and will be accountable for their actions. This is why it's important for both the police and the community to learn to take the steps to trust each other, take responsibility for their actions, and work together to prevent and fight crime. Therefore, we could have a safer community. So what have we talked about? We've talked about the reasons why the police and community relationships have declined, the possible solutions such as adding police body cameras and providing police and community-friendly programs, and we've discussed what the world would look like with and without the possible solutions implemented. So I ask that all of you remind yourselves that police are human. Even though they wear a uniform, they are also men and women from our communities. And I ask you all to think about what is really important and have a discussion with your community and the people around you about it. So what's really important? Trying to point fingers at each other and blame somebody? Or trying to find common ground and creating an environment that is peaceful and safer for all our families to live in? Because if you don't, the situation between the police and the community will only get worse, creating more havoc and chaos on our streets. As an old proverb by Howard Zinn says, small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. How about we all do our little part? It can make a big difference later, and not only in our lifetime, but in the future for our children and for generations to come. Thank you everyone for watching my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye!